WYSL. The WYSL stations present an hour of truth for the battered but proud people of the Empire State. From the financial and entertainment epicenter of New York City to the sleeping and empty small cities and towns of upstate, which once bustled with manufacturing, mining, and farming. We all know from inspiration, history, and nature, we deserve a return to the success and growth of generations past, a birthright being squandered by corruption in Albany, and the depredations of an insecure, scheming mountebank posing as governor, who loathes both us and himself. As liberty beckoned to enslaved peoples behind the Iron Curtain via American broadcasts after World War II, we now say, believe, rise, and join us. Welcome to Radio Free New York.
And ladies and gentlemen, the endless vacation of Andrew Hollister continues, second only to the endless vacations of Barack Obama and family. No, I'm just razzing him because he's over in the Czech Republic, and who knows, he might be listening, and so I figured just needle him a little bit. Bob Savage here in studio. Welcome to Monday, and our rotating smorgasbord of guest hosts today includes, sign in please, Brooke Harris. Hey.
Hey, how's it going?
Marvelous. And why don't you tell the audio radiance out there exactly who you are and what you do?
I am a county legislator down in beautiful Allegheny County, jewel of the Southern Tier.
Indeed.
And I think, what was it? Mid-election last time, I came up here in support of Mr. Hollister and Mr. Sharp, and that's how we met. And now that, as you say, Andrew's on his world tour, I'm here to fill in for him.
Lucky you. So here you are, and you have, being a county legislator, I mean, there's a lot of issues that you deal with down there in Allegheny. Well, by the way, beautiful. I do agree. It's the crown jewel of the Southern Tier, whatever the superlative is.
Thank you very much.
Beautiful spot down there. And also, WYSL is a great signal down through there. So we always say hi to our friends in, Wellsville, Belfast, all the way down to Olean. I know that's not Allegheny County, or is it? Is that?
It is not. No, that's
Cattaraugus, right?
Yep.
But I know that we come bombing in down there, and Alfred Almond and Wellsville and all those good folks. And by the way, down there in Wellsville, now this summer you've been complaining about the signal because our big transmitter broke. Well, it's back to full strength now, so we're pumping more wattage into your cottage. But go ahead, Brooke.
Well, we appreciate you sending your wattage our way. I'm going to talk today, kind of give you folks a state of the counties, how counties are dealing in the upstate with the myriad mandates that we've been living with for years, and to give you a rundown of all the terrible ideas that have come out of Albany since the new legislature came in.
Yeah. Is this a 4-hour show today? Or?
It could be. It could be a 24/7 operation, just trying to keep up with what they're doing and what they're making us do. And we'll try to maybe avoid discussing whether or not these things are good ideas for today and just be satisfied talking to each other about how they're not paying for it and they're making upstate taxpayers pay for it.
Well, I think we already know whether they're good for us or not.
Yeah, well,
in most cases.
You're probably right. But so speaking of mandates, and I don't want to go too far back or get too elementary, but just so we're on the same page about what mandates are, is mandates aren't just things that the state and the feds tell us to do that we have to do. There's other things besides rules and regulations that would define a mandate. It could be something like some kind of environmental or labor standard that county or municipal governments have to uphold. It could be the requirements to construct a new jail. It could be a requirement to construct a new courthouse because they're not up to state or federal standards. Everything down to tax breaks for properties. It's the state and the federal governments that determine what types of businesses and properties can be property tax exempt, such as educational institutions or religious bodies and so forth. I don't think you qualify, by the way, Bob.
Oh, no. That's it's really funny. A colleague of mine who owns a broadcasting station in the Southern Tier decided that he would try this, applying for state programs, these financial incentive things that they put out for business development. And he set in an application for, like $3 million because they got one of these urban development grants. And he's still waiting for some reason, I'm thinking that maybe he's not going to get that big check from the state because, you have to be connected, right? I mean, it's all.
That's a big part of it. That's certainly a big part of it.
All about, yeah, exactly. Mandates are basically there to benefit the supporters of government programs and notions.
Well, we have a vacant. I don't know if you're aware, but we have a vacant state Senate seat down in the southern tier. Kathy Young resigned, and so we're waiting to fill that seat. And the Democrat that's running down there, he's running mostly on the platform that you better elect me because I'm a Democrat, and if you elect another Republican, you're not going to get any money for the next term.
Isn't that charming?
Yep.
Right. But I mean, that's what we call third world governance or tribal governance, and that's kind of their act. That's kind of the way the state is run. You support Andy and his buddies, and you get the Buffalo billion. Except the Buffalo people didn't really get a billion, but that's just an inconvenient detail.
And in the off chance that you happen to get some funding from the state, the delay in receiving those funds after they're awarded, it can be significantly painful for municipalities. I mean, the cash flow issues that we have at the county level are extraordinary because at any given time, the state could owe us multiple millions of dollars.
Charming. So let's go back. Let's circle back because one of the mandate type things that really hits home for most New Yorkers are property taxes. So explain. A couple of years ago, well, maybe it was 5 years ago or so, Governor Andy came out with this great idea that we're gonna limit property taxes. Explain how that works, or maybe more accurately, doesn't work in terms of the pocketbook of the average property owner in upstate New York, and also the pressures that puts on county government.
Well, the property tax that was initiated by Governor Cuomo, and I think is now permanent, is a basic 2% tax cap on any municipality or taxing authority. So that's schools, villages, towns, cities, counties. A lot of Republicans, including our former senator and myself, are in favor of the tax cap. Where we run into trouble is when mandates outpace the 2% cap. If the state is introducing unfunded or underfunded mandates to municipalities and counties in excess of 2%, but they're requiring a maximum 2% property tax increase, it makes it very difficult for counties in particular to do anything about it other than eliminate other services, eliminate employees, and do everything they can to just remain below that cap. If for instance, if Allegheny County wasn't under the thumb of the state to pay for these mandates, we have right now a $29 million tax levy annually. Our tax levy would be south of $2 million annually if the state either fully funded the mandates that they send down to us or they eliminated the mandates entirely.
Really?
And that's not unusual for Allegheny County. I think statewide, not including New York City, about 90% of county tax levies are used to fill the gaps between mandates and their funding.
So give us some examples of some of the mandates. What does the state impose on you and say, all right, before you have any discretion, to spend any of your budget, you gotta check all these boxes.
Yep.
Tick them off for us.
Okay, the biggest ugly is Medicaid, of course. Medicaid alone
gigantic
accounts for 30% of our tax levy. So that's between $10 and $12 million annually.
And a fun footnote, by the way, New York State has, at last I checked, what's the Medicaid multiple, if you will, compared with the next biggest? Isn't like 6 times the Medicaid assessment per patient?
If you're talking about eligibility requirements, I'm not quite sure. I do know that we got some small savings when the state put a cap on increases back about 8 years ago to 3%, and they've now also passed that they're going to cap it at 0% any increases in the local share. But even Republicans who will pat themselves on the back and say, look how much money we saved you, they just don't seem to recognize that it's still a $12 million nut that our county has to come up with every year.
What's the population of Allegheny County again?
48,000.
Okay.
Yep.
A little bit smaller than Livingston here. It's a kind of, if you will, kind of equivalent of Wyoming, maybe. I think they're in that range.
Yeah. Yep. That's much small. We're smaller than our neighboring counties to the east and west, but we're pretty close to Livingston and pretty close to Wyoming as well.
Yeah, that's right, because Livingston we're about to lose the prisoners in Groveland when they close
I
that.
saw that, yeah. And in fact, our legislature passed a resolution last month in support of keeping that open. I don't think it'll do you guys much good, but...
No, I think it's a fait accompli.
Yeah.
But don't worry about it, because the state's still going to spend a lot of money replacing the roof on the prison that's going to be closed.
Right.
And there's a whole bunch of other contracts which have been let that, hey, listen, we can't let down Andy's patrons here. So all that work is going to be done, because don't you know, that's going to make it that much easier to sell that now disused vacant prison. Oh, boy. Anyway, we'll be back with more here on Radio Free New York. Andrew Hollister on vacation again. Bob and Brooke in the studio with you for this beautiful summertime Monday. There is more to come. Don't go away.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
A reminder from Abate Monroe County. American bikers aim toward education. Distracted driving is dangerous, so pull over and eat. Don't try to read your mail and newspaper, and stay off your cell phone. Make a mental note to be more alert, making it a habit to expect the unexpected. Remember to look twice, save a life. Train yourself to watch for motorcycles which are harder to see. Join Abate, and your family will be protected with a free $4,000 accident policy. Ride safe, ride free, ride often. Abate. If you ride with us. Google Abate Monroe County.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York
on the WYSL stations.
Thanks for joining us for Radio Free New York for this Monday. Bob Savage in studio for the vacationing Andrew Hollister. We have Allegheny County legislator Brooke Harris with us, who has also been here back during the last election cycle. And we're talking about tax burdens and how the state just kind of like shoves it off on counties and pretends like nobody will notice. So go ahead, Brooke. We were talking about mandates before the break.
Mandates. Yeah, so we started off with Medicaid, but I want to run through I'm going to give you the big 9, and Medicaid is one of them. But between these 9, and there are dozens more that we won't talk about, but between these 9, that's what equates to 90% of Allegheny County taxpayers' tax levy from the county. Big one after Medicaid is TANF and Safety Net. For those not familiar, TANF is Temporary Assistance for Needy Families. Statewide in the upstate, last year, that was $300 million in unfunded mandate. Below that, we have child welfare, and that covers everything from Office of Child and Family Services that you would expect. Of course, we have special education and pre-K. That's the county's responsibility. I had no idea that was the case until I was elected a couple years ago. Similar to that is early intervention. Early intervention is another program that the state forces the counties to implement, but they don't fully support.
What is that? What's early intervention? What's it about?
That's for disabled youth prior to entry into public schools. It's the county Department of Health's responsibility to make sure they're getting the care that they need before they get to school. And then, of course, we have indigent defense, also known as the Public Defender's Office, and we'll talk about this a little bit more in the second half of the show because there's huge changes that have come in criminal justice reform that are just blowing up the budgets of our public defender's office and our district attorney's office as well.
Can we go off on a siding here for a little bit and discuss that issue, because I think it's important for people to understand what criminal justice reform means. Basically, what this does is it ratchets up the jobs of prosecutors in prosecuting crime in the state of New York. It makes their jobs considerably. Is that a fair general description of what's going on?
It is, but it's just a portion of what's going on. But in that case, yes, there's a new mandate for speedy trial, greater than was in place before. There's no state funding that's coming down to the district attorneys of the counties for that. There's also the new discovery guidelines, which, according to the district attorneys in the upstate, could increase their budgets from between 10 and 30% annually, just the discovery guidelines. And I'm not particularly, I don't particularly have a full understanding of it, but what it means is that the district attorneys are going to have to be more forthcoming and more quick about getting their prosecutorial materials over to defense lawyers prior to trial.
Yeah, just so people understand how the real world works here, okay? Just real quickly. We've all seen the courtroom dramas on TV and the movies where, there's this dramatic trial that's taking place, and at the appropriate dramatic moment, somebody shows up with a piece of evidence or a surprise witness that completely determines the outcome of the case, as if all the other evidence was total nonsense and had no validity whatsoever. And the courtroom breaks out in bedlam, and the hero wins the day, depending on what the narrative is. And that just doesn't happen. That can't happen, because what has to happen is the prosecution has to share its evidence with the defense, so that the defense can prepare its defense.
And vice versa.
Right. So the attorney, both sides have to share everything that's determinative, anything that, evidence, testimony, all that other stuff. And in point of fact, I mean, if there were some sudden revelation of some game-changing testimony or evidence in a trial, that would result in a mistrial, because what that does is it tips the scales of justice. So what's going on here is the process, the thumb is being put on the scale towards the defendants in criminal cases, to the point where the discovery process is going to become that much more burdensome. And of course, when that occurs, guess who pays that bill? Now go look in the mirror if you didn't get the meaning of that.
Yeah. And, I won't debate the pros and cons of it. I know our public attorney certainly is in favor of a majority of the criminal justice reforms, and some of them I am as well. But the one that we haven't talked about that's going to be the most expensive is cashless bail, which it's so difficult to quantify how much that's going to cost counties and municipalities, because there's a ripple effect when you stop. For those who don't know, cashless bail, the state has determined that any misdemeanor or low-level nonviolent felony, judges aren't going to be permitted to set bail prior to their court dates.
Did you get that, folks? Felonies, too.
Yep, that's right. And so what that does is it puts an extraordinary burden on probation departments to monitor these alleged criminals who will no longer be in county jails, will be out on the street. It also puts a burden on county jails, because at any given time it could be more than half of county jail residents could simply be arrested and awaiting trial, and they just won't be there anymore.
Okay. All right, go ahead.
Let's see, what else is coming down the pipe here? I don't know if you talked previously on the show about AIM funding.
No.
AIM funding is the assistance to municipalities. That was a straight state funding support of towns and villages. And the governor decided that the state was no longer going to provide that funding. In Allegheny County, that equated to about $600,000 worth of funding that disappeared from towns and villages. As you can imagine, before the state budget was passed, towns and villages put up a big stink about making sure that funding was reinstated into this year's budget. And the governor did so, but he just said the way we're going to pay for it is through the county's share of sales tax. So he took what was a state responsibility and passed it directly on to the counties, who already are having difficulty balancing their budgets even with their sales tax receipts they're getting now.
What's the sales tax in Allegheny?
We have a high sales tax. Our total sales tax is 8.5%. The county portion is 4.5%.
Right.
Yep.
So let's circle back here to the property taxes for a minute. Now, under certain circumstances, you can evade the 2% property tax cap. And explain how that works.
You can do that. I know I used to be on a school board down at Alfred Almond, and I know that in school districts you can exceed the tax cap, but it requires a supermajority approval of your budget at the budget vote. Now, counties don't have a public vote on their budgets, and they can exceed the tax cap, but again, at their own peril, because the state threatens to pull other funding if counties don't toe the line and adhere to their 2% tax cap.
Jeez. So basically what they've got is they've got you pinned down in the little wax tray, like the frogs that we dissected in high school, and they're hovering over you with a scalpel all the time, at least in the fiscal sense, if you'll pardon the metaphor.
Yeah, and the state pulled a neat trick on counties. I think it was about 3 or 4 years ago. It was before I was in office. They went to all the counties and they said, and towns and villages, and they said, okay, how are you guys sharing services? We would like to see if you guys are doing your best to provide for each other and find cost savings by sharing, say, road equipment, things like that, sharing services with each other. So the towns and villages in the county went to all this trouble to draw up this huge list of things that they did.
Consolidation.
Right. And so the state came back the next year and said, thank you for that list. Now, we want you to start a new list of things that you haven't been doing, and we will provide you funding if you can prove that you have initiated new shared services. And people said, okay, well, we're already sharing all these services. They said, no, that doesn't count. Remember that list you gave us last year?
No way.
That doesn't count.
What a trick that was.
Right. And now you have to think of new things. And once they did that and they tied a certain amount of funding to it, they said, oh, by the way, this funding will only be given to you if you do not exceed the 2% tax cap. So...
Thanks for nothing.
Yeah.
So, and how realistic is that for the state to say, okay, cut some more, consolidate some more?
Extraordinarily difficult.
I mean, you can't get blood from a stone.
Right, and everybody at this point in the game, everybody's thought of everything they could possibly do to share services. So they're just pulling out all kinds of nonsense like LED lighting, bulk purchasing for all the villages in a county, or boy, I can't even think of another one.
Villages' needs vary. I mean, there's different villages. They have different, buying bulk doesn't necessarily result in any economies of scale because the needs change.
That's right. And well, sometimes they do, sometimes they don't. Another thought they had was maybe we can consolidate code enforcement or assessors. And we're already doing that down there in Allegheny County in a lot of cases. So all it is a lot of busy work from the state for them to be able to say, we're trying to get them to work together, they just won't do it.
So, and by the way, consolidation to the uninitiated, you talk about, there's duplication. You have a village highway department, then you have a town highway department, then you have a county highway department. And you think, well, gee, that makes a lot of sense. We could consolidate those things, just have one department that would take care of all the roads in the county, and that's that, right? But this is your government. The government that is smallest and closest to you is the truly representative government. These are people who really take care of the issues and affect the policies that have the biggest impact on your life. And if you take away those and you delegate more and more to the counties and to the state, you have less and less direct control over government. And those outcomes.
Yeah, and when people talk about consolidation, they say, okay, well, the savings will be in administration. And that argument could be made in, say, small school districts, where you could say, okay, we don't need 4 superintendents for these 4 schools. We could have 1 superintendent do this job for these 4 schools. But when you start talking about highways, bridges, roads, most of our highway superintendents are working superintendents. They're on the trucks, they're on the tractors, they're working right along everyone else. And there isn't, if you consolidate, there isn't any less paving that needs to be done over the course of the year. The roads are still there. The work still needs to be done. And none of these small highway departments are bloated in terms of the number of employees they have. They all work hard, and I just don't see a lot of savings as far as consolidating that way.
All right, Brooke Harris with us here on Radio Free New York, in for Andrew Hollister. And we thank you so much for joining us. We'll be right back.
You're listening to the voice of liberty. AM 1040 Avon Rochester, FM 92.1 Rochester, FM 95.5 Spencerport, and WYSL1040.com everywhere.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to SimpleTech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that SimpleTech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at SimpleTech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at SimpleTech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Avon Gun and Hunting Supply, a locally owned and operated gun shop specializing in pre-owned firearms and repairs. Get your rifle, shotgun, or pistol serviced and tuned before you take it to the field. Open daily. Avon Gun, East Main Street, between the Bank of Castile and Charlotte's Web of Odds and Ends.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at SimpleTech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, SimpleTech Innovations should be your first call. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. SimpleTech Innovations.
Radio Free New York on WYSL.
AM 1040, FM 92.1, and FM 95.5 West.
As the saying goes, hear them speak.
We're not going to make America great again. It was never that great. We have not reached greatness. We will reach greatness when every American is fully engaged.
Which I gather means when every American agrees with me, then we'll have greatness. Oh, boy. No narcissism there. Hey, Bob Savage here in for Andrew Hollister. Our guest host today for this Monday is Allegheny County Legislator Brooke Harris. Now, Brooke, are you kind of like an at-large member? Are you a town supervisor? Or?
No, not in our county. Our county is, there are some counties that have a board of supervisors as opposed to a county legislature, but that's my sole position in government as a county legislator representing one of our 5 districts in Allegheny County.
Okay.
My district covers Alfred, Almond, West Almond, Birdsville, Allen, Grove, Burns for those of you who have hunting camps down there or something, if you know where some of those are.
Or those of you who like to go to the Pancake House every February or
That
March.
place too, yes. That's the pride of our district for sure.
Love the Cartwrights.
Yeah.
Great folks.
Hey, Mr. Savage, you didn't let me finish.
Sorry.
With all of these mandates, there's more.
Well, it's only an hour show here, Brooke, So.
I'll go quickly here because there's a couple of big ones, and one of them is related to criminal justice reform, and that's this new policy of counsel at first appearance. And that requires the public defender to make sure that at arraignments, initial arraignments, that those who would require the services of the public defender's office have someone there to represent them. So that means if you get pulled over at 2 a.m. for drinking, and you get pulled into the town of Birdsville Court, the public defender's office in Allegheny County now will be required to send an attorney at 2 a.m. to come see you through your arraignment.
And that's free. I mean, that doesn't cost anything.
Well, what it does is it takes the public defender's office, which is a 9 to 5 operation with court nights on occasion,
24/7
to a 24/7 operation. And you can't just hire one lawyer to be the night lawyer. What if you have 2 arraignments? What if you, that's a lot of hours that are being required to be filled by public defender's offices and paid for by county government. That is one that they've said they're going to fully fund, but as I stated before, we haven't seen any money from it yet.
Well, ask the folks in Buffalo about their Buffalo billion, which they've never gotten that check.
Yep.
At least not most of it, or not a lot of it.
All right, I'm only going to give you 2 more here, Bob. And,
it's okay.
And
all right.
One's a little one, one's a big one. The little one is there's a new change in the requirements for the lead paint testing, blood level monitoring in youth. And that sounds like a really minor issue, but as far as our county association tells us, it's a $36 million decision made by the state that they are providing no funding for.
That's statewide, I'm hoping.
36 million statewide.
Yeah, okay.
Yep. But again, that's a small one, but there are dozens of those.
What practically speaking, what does that mean? I mean, lead paint. So what, like in every real estate transaction, or the code enforcement officers go around and look for lead paint? I mean,
right. Well, it's operated through our Department of Health, and so it's my understanding that they just do spot checks, and then I believe any home that's older than a certain year is required to go through that testing as well when they go through a real estate change.
Okay, so when they can't, they're not going door to door and saying, "Hey, we're here to test your paint."
They've never knocked on my door. And it's probably a good thing they haven't, because my kids do act squirrely sometimes.
Okay. All right, so that's the minor one now that you're talking about as far as mandates.
Yep.
This is Mandate Monday, folks.
That's right. And here's the big one I've been saving best for last is the raise the age legislation. And I don't know if you're familiar with that, Bob. This one's actually, we're a year into this one. And that was the law that raised the age of criminal responsibility from 16 to 18. And they've done it over 2 years. And again, it's one that probably sounds good to a lot of people, that we don't need to be criminalizing minor offenses for 16 and 17-year-olds, giving them criminal records early in life that could scar them for a long time. But
Scar them.
How
about holding them accountable for their actions?
Yep. I can see that point of view as well. But this is a progressive state government now, and they want to give these guys the opportunity, and gals, the opportunity to be rehabilitated and enter the workforce when they're 18 or college and be ready to go without a criminal record. The problem is they're asking counties to administer this new portion of Raise the Age, which would not allow 16 and 17-year-olds to be housed in the same facilities as adults. What that means for counties, for Allegheny County and all the others, but for us, it requires us to either build a new facility just for those 16 and 17-year-olds, of which we've had one.
I was going to say, how many defendants are we talking about here?
Allegheny County has had one in the last year. Or we could join in with a group of counties and build a big facility out in a cornfield somewhere and share the burden of maintaining that. Or we could do what we've been doing, and that's been paying $1,000 per bed per day for an empty bed on the off chance that we end up having one of these 16 or 17-year-olds that would qualify for that type of housing.
$1,000 per bed per day. Why is it that much?
That's a good question, but I think it might have something to do with, as you said, people getting paid for being supporters of the government. It's expensive to run jails, I understand. But that's like 2 Ritz-Carlton king-size beds every day.
Yeah, I mean, I had to pick up a friend of mine from Super 8 this past weekend. That was, I think, $65 a night. That was a pretty nice little room.
Oh,
I mean,
great deal.
So, I mean, with 1,000, that's insane.
Yeah, it's just nuts. And so we've been paying every single day for I don't know how many beds we're holding. It's either 2 or 3, I believe. Holding empty beds in the anticipation of maybe or maybe not someday having one of these kids that qualifies.
So how do you avoid intermingling with the general jail population? Is it in a special wing, or is it isolated in some way?
Well, that's the challenge. With the new regulations, you can't house 16 and 17-year-olds even in their own wing if it's on the property that also houses adult inmates.
What?
So if we have a 100-acre property and we have a jail in one corner of it, we couldn't build a separate housing facility in the other corner of that 100 acres and house juveniles in it.
There's other ways to isolate. It has to be an actual but by the same token, you can have a parcel of land that's adjacent to the current parcel of land. You know, it could be like 6 feet away.
The philosophy is that they don't want these kids to feel as though they're incarcerated. They want them to feel as though they're in a facility that is designed to help them rehabilitate themselves.
They want them to feel like they're in Disney World? What? They're being disciplined for a reason because they've done something wrong. They've broken a law, right?
That's correct. Yes. Yep.
You're confirming the suspicion that you suggested a few minutes ago that we are living in a progressive state. That's insane.
Yeah, it is insane. And what's difficult is that most of these, and again, not getting into the pros and cons of them, most of these new mandates that I've described today are universally despised in the upstate. It's only in the Big Five and downstate where these have any support at all. And unfortunately, we in the upstate are having to pay through our property taxes for the implementation of these ideas that we think are terrible.
Well, and I mean, it's just it's another example of how the state is just completely irresponsible when it comes to money and taxation. There is a complete and total disconnect between the impact on the quality of life in the state and how much money is spent. And so other than that, how's life in Allegheny County? Other than the mandates, what else is going on?
Yeah, well, we're doing a lot of good things down there. And it's funny, the state is smart because they know what programs people actually do care about. Veteran services, Office for the Aging, Youth Bureau, all these things that Allegheny County residents really like and really appreciate their county providing for them. Those aren't mandated. They don't need to be mandated because those are things that we want to do. The only programs that are mandated are ones that we wouldn't do unless we were forced to.
Mm-hmm. And if you're forced to do it, implicit in that action is the fact that you have resisted doing it because you have made a calculation that those services are duplicative or unnecessary or unwanted or wasteful or check all the boxes above.
All of the above.
And you have a characterization of the typical top-down government that comes from Albany, and top-down is almost always a loser.
Seems that way. So speaking of doing things you don't want to do, I don't know if we're up against a break or not, but I do want to talk to you today about our county clerk, who's one of the many county clerks in the upstate who's refusing to administer the new green light law in his DMV.
Absolutely. Let's do that. So just to refresh everybody's memory, the green light law is the law that requires counties to issue driver's licenses to illegal aliens.
Bingo. Yep. And
you want to talk about widely despised. It's hugely despised upstate.
It is, yep. And we have a large illegal immigrant population up here with all the agriculture, and still and yet it's universally despised. And I wasn't in favor of it myself, but in sitting down with our county clerk, who oversees our DMV, I didn't realize how bad it was. The trickiest part, if I understand the new regulation, is that any person from any country, regardless of their citizenship status, can come and receive a driver's license with simply a identification from their home country.
Which, of course, has probably no infrastructure verify whether or not the representations made in that documentation are anything other than fantasy.
There's no way for the problem is there's no way for a DMV clerk to have the training, the know-how, the language skills. I mean, we're talking about upwards of 200 countries that these could be, multiple hundreds of languages that these things could be in, and they're expecting your average DMV clerk to be able to decipher these to the point where they can confirm whether or not they're legal documents. It's just insanity.
No, there's in many cases there's no way to effectively communicate with the foreign, government to verify the authenticity of these records. It's just like a total waste of time.
No, but even if you could you imagine the amount of man hours it would be required to just fight your way through an average day to your local DMV? And again, no funding provided to DMVs to comply with this new rule.
Right. It's just some fantasy that some downstate legislator dreamed up, thought this would sound good, has a lot of left-wing appeal to his constituents, and so we'll just impose this on upstate New York. It's akin to the bright idea that somebody had that, if you're going to apply for a pistol permit, this is just an example, I'm not changing the subject. We want to search all of your internet searches for the last, 3 years or 5 years or whatever. Who's going to do that? How many Google searches have you done this year? You're one person.
You could maybe hire from home all the grandmas that sit at home on Facebook putting up emojis online all day and just have them do the background checks.
It's just a ridiculous suggestion. It's impossible. It's impossible to implement.
Yeah, it is, and there's some secondary and tertiary issues with it too. And one is that I don't know the last time you re-upped your driver's license, but when you do, there's a little kiosk right there when you're finished, and they hand over your driver's license, and it's for you to register to vote. And it's a DMV policy that the DMV employees are not permitted to observe these people when they attempt to register to vote. So if you're coming from a foreign country, you're not a U.S. citizen, you just got your fresh new driver's license, you're instructed to go over and attempt to register to vote.
Nice. There's no overreaching going on there, I'm sure. We will be back on Radio Free New York.
Your business relies on computers and technology to operate. Slow, unreliable networks and servers can cause unplanned downtime and affect your bottom line. The experts at Simple Tech Innovations are here to help. Their preventative maintenance program ensures that your computers and network are kept up to date and monitored for any issues, keeping your business running smoothly. They also help clients achieve HIPAA, PCI, and New York State cybersecurity compliance to keep your network safe and secure. Whatever your business IT needs are, Simple Tech Innovation should be your first call. They've won the Best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A+ Better Business Bureau rating. Call them today for a free consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
Fiorella, a family-owned farm-to-table Italian restaurant with casual atmosphere at the newly renovated Rochester Public Market. Fiorella offers wood-fired, old-world-style pizza with naturally leavened dough, house-made fresh pasta, desserts, and gelato. Enjoy craft beers, imported Italian and New York State wines. Open Wednesday through Saturday for lunch and dinner. Wednesday evenings enjoy no corkage fee. And Thursday is gnocchi night. Call 434-5705 for reservations. View the menu on the web. restaurantfiorella.com.
Why do businesses choose to move their website from Wix and Squarespace to Simple Tech Innovations? Maybe it's their excellent customer service or attention to detail. Maybe it's their ability to give a truly customized solution. Or perhaps they just like the fact that Simple Tech is a local small business that builds great relationships with its clients. Whatever the reason may be, you can rest assured knowing that the local team at Simple Tech has your best interest in mind when building or updating your website. They're hands-on and love helping customers achieve their goals. But don't take my word for it. They've won the best in Rochester 8 years in a row and have an A-plus Better Business Bureau rating. If your website doesn't match your dreams or isn't achieving your goals, give the professionals at Simple Tech Innovations a call today for a consultation at 585-200-3182. That's 585-200-3182. Simple Tech Innovations.
You're listening to Radio Free New York
on the WYSL stations.
We're back on Radio Free New York. Beautiful summer afternoon here in upstate New York. And you look out at the bucolic, countryside, and you would never imagine that, that's just a total fiscal disaster area. Allegheny County legislator, I avoided the term lawmaker there, is with us today to talk us through the perils and vicissitudes of trying to be a political leader upstate and avoid complete financial ruin. And it's a tall order, isn't it?
It is, yeah. Hey, during the break, I went ahead and I looked for your Rochester listeners. Just curious to see how much their Medicaid burden costs them in terms of their property tax levy.
Yeah,
it's over 50%.
Wow.
Yeah, it's unbelievable. $184 million Monroe County residents are spending on Medicaid, not covered by the state. Terrible.
Well, at least we can get those, state-paid sex change operations.
I may need to move. Is that true?
Everybody, who hasn't wanted a sex change operation?
Well, when it's free, it's an easier decision to make.
Sure, you bet.
Hey, I was going to just give some tips to your listeners about, from my vantage point, the best thing to do if you are as tired of these mandates as county representatives are, if you want to do something for us, I would say you just simply got to contact your elected officials, particularly at the state level. And what we need as local officials in order to lower your property taxes is for the state to take back full ownership of Medicaid. So that's number one. Number two.
What does that mean, Brooke? What's that? Take back full ownership?
Well, New York State is one of the very few. It may be the only state. I'm not sure at this point where counties are responsible for paying a portion of the Medicaid costs to their residents. Every other state, it's a state issue. The state pays for it through their budget. But there's accountability
there, right?
Yeah, of course. Yeah. That's just another accounting trick for the state. If they want to be able to show that they don't have 2% increases in their overall budget, but they're passing down so many expenses, particularly Medicaid, to local counties, that they don't have to include those costs in their budget at all. And that's why it's easy for the state to get under their 2%, because they can just pass whatever's over 2% onto the counties.
So it's off the books.
Right. Yep. Yep. Another thing you can do is contact your state reps and ask them to support a bill. It comes up every year. It never makes it out of committee, but the more help, more people to contact, the better. I've got the Senate bill. I'm not sure what the Assembly bill number is, but Senate Bill S-2017A is a bill that would require eliminate the state's option for passing any new mandate that isn't fully funded onto municipalities and counties. And it also calls to form a mandate review board, which would look at existing mandates and determine how to eliminate them so counties and towns and villages don't have to pay for the government's dirty work.
Well, I don't want to disincentivize people, in terms of getting in touch with their state lawmakers, but the center of gravity politically in the state is downstate, right?
Yeah, sure it is. But you have local elected officials that sit in the state legislature. I mean, there are people up here that are like-minded that are sitting in the Senate and the Assembly. And I know they're the minority at this point, but just staying on top of them.
Got to start somewhere.
Yeah,
right?
you just have to stay on top of them. And even at the county level, it's easy to get complacent and say, you kind of put your hands up and say, there's nothing I can do about this, there's nothing I can do about that. But when you have people calling you and people emailing and saying, we need you to work on this, it invigorates you and it gets you, to focus back in on what's important to people in the upstate and what, in my case, issues that made me run in the first place.
Is it complacency or is it fatalism? Because I think an awful lot of people feel like, I try to stay up on these issues. I try to communicate. I try to be a good citizen and pay my taxes and so on and so forth. But no matter what happens, nothing ever seems to change.
I guess I can see that point of view. Yes, it probably is a little bit more like that, but it's also a little bit of laziness, and I'm speaking for myself. But when you get in a setting where you're on a large board, it's a lot easier to sit down at a meeting, vote yes 20 times, go out to lunch, and go home, than it is to put up a fight about something you don't believe in, embarrass yourself because you get up to speak and maybe you're not as well informed about a topic as others. So I see that a little bit on some of the boards I've been in, not necessarily the one I'm on now, but it just seems like it's easier for people sometimes to just toe the line and just do this is what we've always done, and there's no sense changing it now, and that's not a good way to govern, especially when you're in the kind of situation we are in the upstate.
What kind of job do you think the state Senate's doing?
Well, to be perfectly frank, I love that they.
No, I want you to be perfectly frank.
I kind of like how they hit the ground running, and they've got all this fervor, and they want to make big changes, and they're putting in extra time, and they're passing all these laws at times when usually all the senators were back home campaigning or working on their home districts. The problem is they're just all the things they're passing are just things I would just never think were a good idea at all.
Right.
But
like gun control.
Like gun control, and yeah,
why are Republicans voting for gun control?
Well, because we're getting into a situation, even in the upstate, where I think we're actually moderating, and I think there's a little bit of a taste for minor gun control, even among some moderate Republicans in the upstate. It's unfortunate, but that's the case. In fact, we have I don't know if you've seen this, Bob, but we have a early or pre-red light law issue happening in Allegheny County with one of our local justices.
Wouldn't surprise me.
We have a local justice in the town of Allen, and I almost think that's where the Pancake House is. So you'd be interested in this.
I thought it was Birdsville, but whatever.
Yeah, it's close. It's on the border. But we had a local justice that got removed from the bench by a state judge, and simultaneously had her pistol permit revoked for an unknown reason. And now she is being required to go before our county court to make an appeal to get her pistol permit reinstated. And there's some speculation, at least in her corner, that it was a retribution. The pistol permit revocation was a retribution for bad-mouthing one of the county court judges down in the town of Allen court. So it's very high drama down there, and I think she has a court appearance coming up next week or something to see if she can get that thing back.
Is this a matter of public record? I mean, we have to be able to discover what the reasons are, right?
I guess I'm not sure, but the way the newspaper articles read, it sounded like they were taken because there was some concern that she was a danger and a threat to others.
That's it. There's the crux of the red flag law. I mean, you tick the wrong person off, you're mentally unstable all of a sudden.
Right.
That's how you got in the Gulag in Soviet Russia. You had to be re-educated. You had to go, get your mind cleansed of these capitalist, decadent ideas.
Yep. So we've got an early. That's going to be interesting to watch. It's kind of an early indicator of how this red light law thing is going to work, because this revocation occurred prior to the red light law. So just kind of a sneak peek, I guess, of how things are going to work with that.
Charming. So we got about a minute and a half left. What else do you want to tell us about the realities of being a policymaker in upstate New York?
Well, it's a little bit better than school boards. I used to say when I was on a school board, we had a $12 million budget, and our school board spent all year long arguing over the $20,000 that we actually had control over. At the county level, in Allegheny County, we have a $120 million budget, so it's 10 times bigger. And we've got maybe closer to $40 million we can argue about. So I get the impression that the higher up you go in government, the more ability you have to actually make a change. But I think I've maxed out my political potential, so I'm just going to have to do my best at the county level to keep things on the cheap.
Not headed for Albany anytime soon.
Too many skeletons in this closet, Bob. I think.
Oh, really? Yeah. You're not talking about your closet. You're talking about theirs, right?
Yeah, both.
Yeah.
Maybe I'd fit right in. I don't know.
See, now you're scaring us. All right, so real quick in our waning seconds here, what's the best thing that folks listening out there can do to try to improve their lot and improve the way of life in upstate New York by taking part in their local government?
Well, if you don't have the time or energy to run for office, which is what I would recommend first, I would say vote early, vote often, every single election. Make sure you vote. And if you are seeing things the way I'm seeing things in the upstate, make sure you vote for the most fiscally conservative, libertarian-minded Republicans, conservatives, libertarians that you can find in your local area.
There it is. A little wit and wisdom from Brooke Harris, Allegheny County legislator. Thanks so much for coming in and being part of the program.
Hey, my pleasure. Nice to see you again.
All right. We'll be back with Radio Free New York on Friday.